In 2020, Brad Hazzard wrongly advised the community that masks are useless. In 2020, Brad Hazzard did not stop nearly 3,000 passengers getting off the Ruby Princess at Circular Quay, which resulted in 28 deaths and more than 700 infections. Someone better wheel this Brad Hazzard off before more people get killed.
Well, the third wave of COVID is raging right across the country, as you've heard, with new variants proving to be more transmissible and undeterred by any kind of vaccine.
With case numbers yet again on the rise nationwide, there are fresh calls for a fourth jab to be made accessible to more people. Well, joining us now to discuss is the New South Wales Health Minister, Brad Hazzard. Brad, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Morning.
How concerned are you about this newest surge of infections, especially if you're saying it's undeterred by the vaccine? You want people to still go and get another vaccine?
We're really concerned that the BA4 and BA5 subvariants of this virus are actually starting to make it look like January again. The numbers are going up quite dramatically. You might remember back in January, it was a pretty ugly month. We had more than 6,000 health staff furloughed or not at work. We had thousands of people in shops and distribution centres not able to come to work. We are worried. We're very worried that these two variants are going to do the same thing. And what we're saying to people right across the country, but particularly in New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, where it's getting a heads up, we want them to go and have their full available dosages of vaccine. It won't necessarily stop you getting the virus, but it will be making it much less likely that you get very ill or die.
Just to Sarah's point, though, if people hear that the vaccination doesn't really make much of an inroad into either getting the virus or if you've got the virus, the levels of that virus, why would you get the virus?
The vaccine.
What I was saying, Carl, is it's the current variants are much more transmissible. They aren't as good or aren't stopped as well in the transmission phase. But once you get it, you are far less likely to get ill, and you're very ill, and you're far less likely to die. So the message there is go and get the vaccines right up to the maximum you can get. We've had 1,232 people die just this year in New South Wales alone who have not had their full doses available of the vaccine. So it's a pretty clear message. Go and get whatever you can get.
And say once after ATAGI meets today and they pass it, are there going to be enough available for people if they want to?
The federal government are obviously the facilitators for getting the vaccine into the country, and there's been no indication from the federal government that we don't have enough. We certainly seem to have enough. And I must say the federal government is working very well with all the states and territories on this issue. We're all on the same song sheet. Go and get vaccinated. We're hoping too that the federal government advisory body will actually enable the fourth dose to be to a much broader category of people. At the moment, there's a fourth dose available if you're over 65 years old, if you're immunocompromised, if you're an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. There's a range of factors. But we'd like to, all the health ministers, I think, are singing then again off the same song sheet, state and territory ones, and I believe the federal minister, wanting to see it come down to a lower age bracket as well.
The Queensland Health Minister, I think, came out yesterday or the day before and said that there wouldn't be a reintroduction of masks. Will there be a similar thing in New South Wales?
I think what Yvette Darth was saying, and we're all in agreement on this, we've moved past having any mandatory stipulations except in public transport where you're in very close proximity. So, no, we're not moving down that path, but a very strong piece of advice, again, from all the chief health officers is don't forget the basics that got us through. Let's go back. 2020, we suddenly got this virus, no vaccines, no antivirals, but we knew the basics. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick. Very simple measures. They still work. So if you're indoors, Dr. Chant here in New South Wales, our Chief Health Officer, who does an amazing job, is strongly recommending, and I'm backing it, absolutely, that if you're indoors, wear a mask. If you can't actually socially distance, wear a mask. It's safer.
Health Minister, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
What is it with this Health and Research Minister, Brad Hazzard in New South Wales? He won't acknowledge hydroxychloroquine treatment should be made legal like they've done it in Queensland. It's just pathetic what's going on. People dying. Very bad.
Straight out misinformation around COVID. Do you regret any messages you put out earlier during the pandemic?
Well, not really, because, I mean, they've been proven to be true. The Queensland... as I said, it's currently now the Queensland Chief Medical Officer, for example, on hydroxychloroquine. Today has taken the ban off it, has made positive statements that that's...
Mainly to do with supply. So the big issue there was they didn't have enough supply if it was going to be widely...
Hold on. I just should check. I didn't want to go into this, but I'm happy to go into it. I donated 37 million doses of hydroxychloroquine to the Australian government. That cost me $35 million of my money. The government didn't complain about it. They took it at the time because it was the only thing that they thought would work. And that was before the pharma companies and the lobbyists in New South Wales and elsewhere who run the Liberal Party got involved in the act. That was before tens of millions of dollars were paid to lobbyists by pharma companies. That was before at Monash University, Bill Gates gave over $20 million to the people of the so-called advisory committee on COVID. And then, only then, was hydroxychloroquine said to be so dangerous to you. Only then, when a trial was done in Europe at 3 times the toxic dose and wrongly reported misinformation in Lancelot, was hydroxychloroquine no good.
Just to jump in, so the issue that TGA's had with hydroxychloroquine is not saying it's necessarily often dangerous. It's more about efficacy of it in terms of treating COVID. So that's been the TGA line on that.
Well, I'm here today. Yeah, that's all I can say to you. I'm here today, and the Queensland Government's Chief Medical Officer...
Let me put this other one before we go to the next question.
Let me just finish this one point. The Queensland Government's Chief Medical Officer, at his direction on the 12th of March, has said he needs hydroxychloroquine to stop the spread of COVID. And he wouldn't say that, and also to treat COVID. The Queensland Government wouldn't say that unless it was true, would they?
I'm not really sure about the statement of stopping the spread of COVID. We might come back to that. But let me just take you this finally. One of your very prominent ads was 210 deaths. It says COVID-19 vaccine, 210 deaths.
Yeah.
When will they stop?
That's right.
Only 11 deaths were from the vaccine. Other deaths occurred after it. Isn't that important to get that right if you want to go by the official TGA?
And you are right, it is wrong. Today it's over 1,222 deaths, which is on the...
No.
Hold on. No. Which are reported deaths on the TGA own data.
This is the important difference here. So the deaths on the TGA website, the deaths from the vaccine versus deaths after are very different. 11 deaths on the website are from the vaccine, and that was after a first dose of AstraZeneca. They are the only deaths from vaccines in Australia.
Well, I have to correct you, right? There's not a death from vaccines unless you've been fully vaccinated, had 2 doses and a booster at the moment, or they don't report it.
That's not true.
Yeah, well, that is true, because I can tell you that myself, that I've got personal knowledge of people who have had the vaccine and died within a couple of days, right? That's not a lot of people, but there's people that have got that.
I don't want to view into anecdotal. But you concede, you use quotes from the TGA. Do you concede that...
Well, the TGA is funded by pharma companies.
But you quoted the TGA. You selectively quoted.
Yeah, because at that time when that was issued, there was 210 reported deaths on the TGA.
After a vaccine, but not from.
Yeah, after a vaccine, that's
right.
Not
from.
Yeah, but at the same time, the TGA only had carried out 3 or 4 autopsies. They require an autopsy to be carried out, and they assume that if an autopsy is not carried out, the vaccine didn't cause it.
Because they have investigations onto other possible deaths, and an autopsy is only carried out when necessary.
Well, all I'm saying to you is that that was my view, and it's also if you look at the data in the United States, you'll see it runs to the thousands, and the same with the UK.
Again, it's from rather than after, but I want to get other journalists.
Let's just look at these vaccines have never been through our system. Anyway, next question.
Hey,
I should get a question.
Ben Westcott, please.
Thanks. Ben Westcott from Bloomberg News. We've talked a lot about before the election, but say you're successful, say that you win a seat in the Senate and that you hold the balance of power. I mean, what are you going to ask whoever forms government for on